Welcome to the Programmatic Digest podcast, a weekly roundup of top programmatic news with fellow programmatic ninjas. I'm your host, Ellen Parker, your very own programmatic sensei. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get into today's conversation, subscribe, like, and share. Leave us a comment. If you need any more details, visit our website, programmaticdigest.com, programmaticdigest.com, where you'll be prompted for our new weekly or monthly newsletter. It only alerts you when there's a new episode live. So thank you so much for all your support and love, and remember to be curious. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda, Joe. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Doing
Thanks
great.
for having us.
Thank you. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you both here. You are part of the MiQ team. We're going to have a pretty exciting conversation today. But before we get into it, how about you both introduce yourself? Amanda, you first.
Great. Thank you. So I've been pretty much in the digital advertising industry for so many years. My career has been mainly in digital since it kicked off in 2008. And where I worked at IMS Corporate, which is basically the Latin hub for big Silicon Valley brands that want to expand in Latin America. So we worked with brands like, LinkedIn, Twitter, Foursquare, Spotify, etc. And one of the big clients of mine was Netflix, where when they entered Latin America, we were their agency for online advertising. And so we were part of, the big movement of getting users, acquisitions, and basically we helped them build a base of 5 million users in the region. And after that, I went along to an ad tech company in Brazil called Royex that wanted to expand their operations from Brazil to Latin America. And as you know, Brazil is like an island in Latin America. So it's very difficult to, have a company that's, mainly in Portuguese, be, led and expanded into Latin America. So it was definitely challenging, but it's basically where I learned all about programmatic advertising and was able to, set up shop in Latin America and get the company rolling there.
Isn't Brazil one of the only Southern American Southern countries that speak Portuguese? How many of them speak Portuguese?
So in Latin America, Brazil mainly. And that accounts for 50% of Latin America.
Right. And that's what I thought. Yeah. Even though it's 50% of Latin America speak Spanish and the other 50%, give or take, speak Portuguese, I feel like Brazil is a very big population there, which before we get into Joe's introduction, I think Amanda is introducing today's topic for you that's listening. We're going to talk about the U.S. Hispanic population, how to communicate, how their consumer, the journey as a consumer here in the U.S. So Joe, looking forward to your introduction.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I started in digital in 2007 at AOL, so it was pretty interesting.
That's a throwback.
Yes, through the many names and many different email addresses, I still remember my Platform A email address that I had for all of about 3 months. But it was I was very fortunate to grow up with the industry as it matured, seeing ad.com, a millennial media, and just really seeing programmatic grow to what it's become, being able to transact on any internet connected ad, really, where back in 2007, it was just desktop, it was just display, and there weren't even iPhones to reach out on. So it's been a pretty cool. Delete the last 10 seconds. Pretty cool to see the industry mature and be able to grow with it. From AOL, I did spend some time at Client Direct with Lending Tree. So that was very exciting to jump to that side. And then I've been at MiQ since 2019. So very excited to be part of the MiQ team in the Mid-Atlantic market.
That's really cool to hear both of your background. And I always like to ask the questions because I like to hear how diverse someone's background is. Like for instance, my background is 100% on the agency side until I own my own agency, which is still agency, where we work with other agency partners. So it's very interesting to see. I always told myself, like, once I leave the agency side, I don't know if I was looking forward to working for a brand, but I really wanted to work for ad tech. But God had a different pathway, of course. So this is really cool. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And as Amanda gave us a little hint earlier, we're super excited to talk about today's topic, which is the U.S. Hispanic audience. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 61 million or close to 60 million Hispanics living in the U.S. today. And they have, of course, in the last year, a lot of the data that we receive and a lot of the stats that we've received have been influenced by the pandemic. People are more home. Some of the, and that's U.S. and Hispanic and non-Hispanic audience, obviously. A lot of the streaming audiences have spent a lot more time streaming, no pun intended. I have pulled a quick Hispanic online marketing survey and a research base, and I'll make sure to share with you, the listener, on our show notes. But it says that 74% of U.S. Hispanics increased video streaming services. 52% increased live television. So they're not only streaming, they're also watching live television. So Amanda, what can you tell us about how to communicate, connect with that audiences? What are the best channels? What are the best media placements that we should consider? Anyone out there listening to this podcast, what are like some benefits to communicating with that audiences, being relevant culturally and racially to them? And yeah, let's start there. I think I felt like I asked 7 questions instead of 1, but let's just start there and see.
Awesome. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, you're right, Ellen. It's about 62 million Hispanics living in the U.S. and their buying power totals up to 1.3 trillion. So,
wow.
Yeah, and there are, significant challenges in reaching this audience online. Mm-hmm. Some challenges include scale, diversity of audiences, and just finding the right channels for, engagement with this audience.
Okay.
And most recently, I've joined to actually build out our U.S. Hispanic and multicultural practice specifically at MiQ, just because we see that massive opportunity for better targeting to the U.S. Hispanic audience that no longer treats the population as a monolith, but rather leverages multiple, there's ability to leverage multiple data sources to hone in on this right subgroup. So with that said, the U.S. Hispanic or, Latinx market, they are really the forefront is mobile. So we see statistics say that U.S. Hispanics not only are more on their mobile, but they are more streaming. Their penetration of U.S. Hispanics that are streaming is higher than the general U.S. population.
Oh, wow.
So that was really interesting. I dug up that information for a client we have that is a streaming service that wants to target U.S. Hispanics here in the U.S. And the importance of localizing and being culturally relevant is fundamental to develop authentic connections with this audience. And a simple example is this audience is not 100% English and they are not 100% Spanish. They are 100% Spanglish. You speak to them, they speak to each other in 2 different languages at the same time, and it's very important to connect with them in that sense. And brands, they need to develop specific strategies specific to that market in order to target them, in the right context.
Yeah, I'm smiling because my first language is French, and we speak Franglish in my household. So when you said Spanglish, I was like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. I don't speak Spanish, but I think it's very interesting. And yeah, we've seen a lot of commercials out there that are doing it really, really bad and really, really wrong. For instance, me, I am targeted constantly with Spanish ads. I think it's because I want to credit it because my maiden name is Fernandez, which is Portuguese also. So I want to, which is my origins are Cape Verdean, which is a Portuguese island in West Africa. So I credit some of those commercials to the fact that it's my last name, but I haven't been my last name for like over 3 years. So I'm still like, yo, I know that, for instance, OTT and CTV targeting is not as concise as it is, or as it should be, rather. So what can you tell us? Because I really want to highlight what you said, like that you have to be culturally relevant. And so what does that really mean to somebody listening, either an agency owner, either a media buyer listening, either a CEO? How can they be culturally relevant in their day-to-day in our industry specifically?
I think, to your point, I think the number one would be understand your audience. Who are we talking to? So your example is perfect. Your last name is Fernandez, so the assumption is that you're bilingual. But we at MiQ, we try the best possible to be deterministic in that sense, and actually know that you are have a Spanish descent or speak Spanish. So we try, I'm not going to say it's 100% because it's not, and whoever says it is not.
Yeah. But there's no 100%.
Yeah. So just the data sets, and the data that we sit on allows us to get as close as possible to the truth of that specific user. So for instance, we have partnerships with Vizio and LG, where we have TV data on viewership data on over 40 million homes in the US. So one of the things that we offer and to our clients who want to target US Hispanics is we are able to identify homes that are Spanish speaking because of the language they watch in or the channels they watch. So it might not be 100% because it might be a guest watching Spanish TV or someone at the house watching TV in Spanish. The owner might not speak Spanish, but we try to get as close as possible. And these are the types of data sets that we use and leverage to be able to identify and then be able to target this user in a culture in a relevant context and situation.
I think that's a great point. So we should clarify deterministic versus probabilistic here. Deterministic data, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure deterministic data is any data set or audience segments that have been identified based on their email address. There's no PI, of course, based we know for a fact that they've logged in somewhere with this email. Versus probabilistics, it's more like there's a high probability that this audience is located here because they may have purchased one time in this area, right? Did I define the two correctly?
Exactly. So my husband can go online and buy something on, something on Victoria's Secrets, and then he will be retargeted with ads targeted to women.
Okay.
So that's probabilistic.
Got it. Okay.
Deterministic could be is using real data sets, being able to connect purchasing information with online behavior, with CRM, with email, connecting the dots.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. Not only from, one data source, but, putting that story together to be able to identify that user.
Yeah, the Victoria's Secret is a great example. I don't think I'll forget that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real story, actually. So he's like, why am I getting these ads? Like, like Pampers or... So it is a real story. And that's, a perfect example.
Oh my gosh. I was harassed digitally with Huggies and Pampers, the brands, after I had my baby. It was absolutely, great point for targeting, but it was heavy everywhere. And I was like, yo, this is either really great targeting or it's crazy that I feel overwhelmed because it's like so well targeted. And it was exactly almost like newborn message, which I was the first time mom at that time. And she was probably like a month or 2 months, but I would see these ads everywhere. And I don't use the brand. I use Hello Bello. So I don't even use the brand. But yeah, so that's a great segue into where to target the audience. I think before we started recording, I mentioned that I saw that MiQ was had digital out of home as an offering, as a service for their clients. MiQ is a DSP. It's self-serve and managed service, right?
Just managed service.
Oh, sorry. So just managed service. So MiQ is managed service and it offers a variety of different channels and placement. So I'm super excited to shift the conversation for that particularly. But before we shift, let's talk about where have some of that audiences not performed the best, but engaged the best? Where are they consuming media outside of their mobile phone, or maybe it's just on their mobile phone? If we had to consider adding that audiences into our media mix, how can we go about doing that? So just to recap our conversation, can you give us like the top 3 things we want to remember? Like if somebody stopped the recording right now, what is 3 to maybe 5 points that they need to take with them in order to understand how to best implement US Hispanic audience targeting into our media mix?
Definitely. So one, for sure, being understanding your audience, knowing your audience, and knowing who you want to talk to and who you will talk to. Mm-hmm. 2, being culturally relevant. It's very important. US Hispanics in general, they put a lot of emphasis in emotional connections. So being able to emotionally connect with them is the key way to increase brand loyalty and affinity.
Okay.
And 3, I would say choosing the right channels. Mm-hmm. So whether it's entertainment, sports, news, it's very important to be in the right context at the right time. Mm-hmm. And that's part of also understanding your consumer.
Got it.
So definitely those 3. And I want to put a big emphasis on being culturally relevant because it's very important so that they feel appreciated. They know, oh, wow, I'm getting a Spanglish ad. Mm-hmm. It's very, for them, it's great. It's interesting. And it shows the brand is, dedicating specifics to them.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you. So hashtag culturally relevant, hashtag Spanglish. If you're playing a drinking game, that would be the 2 keywords there. So let's shift into digital out of home before we close really quickly, because I want to be mindful of your time. So what is the greatest and latest about digital out of home? Why is it important to implement? And what are a few things any advertisers out there or brands should know about digital out of home?
Yeah, all great questions. And I think it's important to set the stage with digital out of home before we even start. Programmatic digital out of home has massive reach on that one-to-many scale that really is unheard of elsewhere. It's a high impact unit. It breaks through the clutter. Often the billboards are life size or larger if you're standing in an airport. It takes the entire concourse up. But more importantly, if you are a brand, there's no fraud. There's built-in brand safety to it. It's 100% viewable. There's no ad blocking. There's no skipping. All of those things that we try and dance around in our day-to-day. There's also the benefits of proximity targeting. At MiQ, we can place ads on an exact screen or in a specific zip or a specific DMA, and we can handpick where those things are. And that's great for a retail customer or a QSR partner. Endemic placements within a gym, if you are a hydration company, not only to emphasize your brand, but also for any conquesting. Put your billboard right in front of your competitor or around the competitor best you can.
Okay.
So it's very important. And we've even seen an uptick over the past few months as personal consumption spending is increasing. 70% of all transactions are still offline. There's a still massive amount, and it's growing for an e-commerce side of things. But there has been an increase of 16% of restaurant spend May over April of this year. We've seen an increase of 3.5% spend in recreation. And travel is just at an all-time high. We've seen peaks of over 2 million travelers a day in airlines. And the last time we saw that was March of 2020. So the opportunity is right to get in front of consumers as they are out and about, many returning to work, many going back to what life was a year and a half ago.
That makes sense because I received something from Adara, which was saying that sentiment for traveling is increasing. I think it was like in the low 40s in February, and now it's like in the high 60s. So people, American, are looking forward to get it outdoors again, and we've seen it with the opening on certain states here in North Carolina. Things are reopening pretty fairly. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And that's why I was curious about digital out of home. So do you guys partner directly with a digital out of home vendor? Like I think Vista is one of them, or is it, I don't know. So how does that work since it's managed services?
Yeah, so great question. And MiQ takes an agnostic approach to everything we do, whether it's the buying platform, the data we use. In this case, it's the supply that we have access to, because we really want to be able to reach the right consumer at the right time on the right screen, whether they're in transit, they're at work, they're at home, they're running errands. We really don't want any limitations into the reach that we can have.
Got it.
So we do have, I would say, 4 to 5 different partners that we've paired up with, that we've handpicked, that we use for our placements. But really what it comes down to is the outcomes, the desired outcomes from our partners. Do we want a conquesting play? Do we want a proximity play? As well as all of the pre-campaign intelligence that we could put forward to our campaign. So in speaking towards the U.S. Hispanic audience that we just spoke to, we'd be able to utilize things like census data to understand what makes sense for our placements. We've used other demographics for like voting districts if we want to be influential during that time.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one that we've really leaned into, not only for retail and QSRs lately, most often travel, has been vaccination rates. Understanding adoption of vaccines in specific areas, they might be more apt to have a day trip somewhere across a state line in a transient state to reach those other areas, as well as understanding those points of interest. So it doesn't make sense to be on the Link NYC buildings where they the stations where they transacted all of the old phone booths into Wi-Fi spots and charging stations. So let's be in front of our brand, and we could help curate people in, or before they get on a subway and travel somewhere, or if it's for nightlife, being right in that spot, or a retail hotspot.
That's a good point, because like when we hear digital out of home, we always think about the billboards, but it's not limited to billboards. I mean, you're talking about, you mentioned somewhere in the metro, you're saying that digital ads on those, it's not a wall, but it's like those panels. It's also at the gas station that's considered, you can buy that type of inventory. Sometimes even on the taxis, you'll see or on the bus, you'll see that ad that is shifting digitally. But yeah, this is such a very interesting topic, but I think we need to come back again and talk about digital at home because I think I may have a little bit more questions than that. But I'd love to close really quickly the segments and ask you both one fun fact. Amanda, your turn. What is one fact about yourself? One fun fact, sorry.
Okay, a fun fact is that I am not Latina. I mean, I am, but I'm Brazilian slash Iranian.
Okay.
So, but living in Miami for so long, the people who speak English, they have to learn Spanish. Like it's a must to live in the city. So,
yeah, it's like Spanish is the second language here. I strongly believe that eventually it will be a second official language.
Exactly. So, I mean, and the fun fact is like most of my career has been in Latin American markets, even though I'm not, Spanish. I didn't like originally not from a Spanish speaking country. So
got you.
A fun fact.
That's really fun. What about you, Joe?
I think mine would be more sports related. I'm a big sports fan. So I was featured on Sports Nation, which was a show on ESPN quite a bit ago. I was very excited to have that opportunity.
Well, you need to share that article because we are going tonight need to see some like pictures or something like that. How long ago was it?
It was quite a bit ago. Okay. There was a YouTube video at one point, but I think it's since been taken down.
That's really cool. So last question, what is something you guys are binge watching right now?
I stumbled across Panic on Amazon Prime.
Panic, okay.
Not knowing what it was about and not realizing that it was like intended for a like young adult audience. Mm-hmm. But I watched the entire thing in like 2 days. So I'll raise my hand that I guess that got me sucked in.
I actually just finished watching a Brazilian series on Amazon Prime called DOOH, DOM.
Okay.
Really intense, really, really intense. But I mean, it's good. It's reality. A lot of like reality stuff come out of it.
Yeah.
And parallel to that, now I'm still watching Human on Netflix, which is a documentary and some outstanding facts about the human body it's out of control. It's out of control. My gosh. I highly recommend it.
I'm going to have
much better answers than mine.
I'm definitely going to check out all three. I don't have a lot of binge watch time these days. I always ask because I'm always like, oh, what are you binge watching? When I binge watch, it's like most of the time I can't finish a season, or if I do finish a season, like I'm exhausted the next day because I'll stay up. But thank you so much for joining us. This has been a really cool conversation. Amanda, we'll have you back to specifically continue this conversation. Same thing with Joe. I think today was a mix of two very important topics that I've been receiving interest in, but honestly, selfishly, I wanted to learn more about. So definitely grateful for you guys' flexibility and time.
As always, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your love and support. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any questions, feedback, or just simply want to say hi, email us at info@programmaticdigest.com. You can also visit the website programmaticdigest.com, where we're always looking for guest hosts. We're also looking for sponsors. So hit us up if you're interested.